How's it going, everyone? And welcome back. We're on our last Marvel game in this marathon before the Avengers, and I decided to bite the bullet and look at Marvel's Spider-Man. The game, not the cartoon series. It's a little confusing. Besides the Dark Knight, I would say the walloping web snapper himself is a favorite superhero of mine. And back during E3 2016 when his game was announced, I was hooked. It looked like he was taking what the Amazing Games did, but actually making it work. Insomniac Games was in charge of the project, and despite knowing their work with games such as Spyro the Dragon, Ratchet & Clank, Sunset Overdrive, and also the Resistance series, I didn't really play anything of theirs until this game was released. Before its release, I followed this game like the plague through various E3 demos, Paris Games Week, and even during the Game Informer coverage. I was so excited for this game that I decided to pre-order the collector's edition, and that was my first pre-order ever, but that's a story for another time. I was tempted to buy the limited edition PS4 Pro also, but seeing how I was saving up to buy a laptop at the time, it was kind of a one-choice thing. Upon playing the game, it was love at first sight, and also considering I spent the summer playing God of War, I needed something that wasn't ripping monsters to shreds. Despite playing the game over 7 times and getting kind of sick of it, I wanted to review this anyway because I thought it was best to get my opinions in sooner rather than later, and what's a Marvel Marathon without the Webhead? For this video we're sticking with the PS4 original, but I will give a quick glance at the PS5 remastered version. I think I've rambled on long enough. It's time to kick this review into high gear and look at the story.
We begin this plot with our favorite hero and the police raiding Fist Tower to take in the Kingpin. After a really entertaining boss fight, Big Willie's incarcerated, which leaves a massive power vacuum in the criminal underworld, which is immediately filled by a group known as the Demons. After an attack on the rally, you find out that the leader of the gang, Mr. Negative, who has the power to corrupt people, is actually a super nice guy, Martin Lee, who runs the Feast homeless shelter. So, with the help of MJ, Peter begins his hunt to stop Martin and prevent him from causing any more chaos. It isn't going to be easy since the mayor, Norman Osborn, decides to call in Silver Sable and her cronies to help with the situation, and it leads to a lot of unnecessary banter. Honestly, I'm not really the biggest fan of Sable in this story. Besides the conflict that didn't really need to happen, everything she does ends up blowing up in her face and she's just flat out unlikable. The end with her bringing us to Feast kinda helped her out a bit, and I do like her design, but overall I could care less about her character. Eventually we find out Mr. Negative's plan is to unleash this chemical known as Devil's Breath in an effort to ruin Norman's reputation since he was created by Oscorp. He's also getting revenge since he's responsible for giving Martin his powers, which killed his parents. After an intense battle and a fun callback, Lee is taken to the raft and the day is saved! For a whole 5 seconds. During a massive prison rout, he's broken out alongside Electro, Rhino, Vulture, and Scorpion, forming the Sinister Six and being led by Dr. Octopus. Figure we should talk about him now, but you meet Otto very early in the game, and as it continues, you slowly see his descent into madness. Mostly from a combination of Norman, of course, and a disease that is slowly shutting his body down. It is very predictable and is something newcomers will probably see coming a mile away, but it is sad because you don't want him to turn evil. Him and Pete have such good chemistry and a great father-son relationship that makes the last scenes between them even more heartbreaking. Well, after tossing Spidey aside, Doc Ock releases Devil's Breath over the population, which causes New York to go to hell.
You know, I had a joke planned, but after seeing that, it feels kinda wrong saying it now.
So with that and the city being overrun by criminals, Spider-Man makes his way through the Sinister Six themselves, and after taking down Martin again, Octavius secures the anti-serum that Oscorp developed and also kidnaps Norman in the process. After recovering and getting his bearings, Peter and Otto have one last confrontation, which Peter obviously wins because
I'm Spider-Man.
Fuck's sake, get out of here, Toby. Christ. No! Bad, Toby, bad! You don't do that here.
With the anti-serum, Peter makes a choice that ends up saving the city, but it costs Aunt May's life, who had gotten sick earlier in the game. She reveals she knows his secret and tells him she's proud of him as he sits with her in her final moments. Time passes with the city being cured, Miles revealing that he has powers, and Peter and MJ rekindling their relationship, ending the story of Marvel's Spider-Man. Overall, the story is just plain great, and I would say it's right up there with Arkham Asylum's narrative. It isn't perfect since I feel they spent a little bit too much time with Mr. Negative, and I wish the Sinister Six had more to do while getting some extra screen time. I would also say it feels really safe for the most part, but I can understand this since you're starting a new franchise and you don't want to go completely overboard. Same thing happened with Asylum, and look how that turned out. One major positive I would say are the characters that join you along the way. Not even just the villains, but also the side characters too. Some of them like Mary Jane, Aunt May, and Yuri Watanabe I really enjoy very much. Miles and Norman are fine for the most part, and Sable, well, you know. The cast just do a great job overall, but the standouts for me, of course, are Spider-Man and Doc Ock respectively. Yuri Lowenthal gives such a sincere and heartfelt performance, and his Peter is so charming and such a badass in costume. William Salyers makes you really feel bad for him while also being an intimidating bad guy as well. This is probably one of my favorite versions of the character, and I would say it's better than Spectacular's Dr. Octopus.
Yes, I did just say that. And on that, let's move over to gameplay.
I'm gonna start with combat, cause I can. You have your main attack with square, a web strike with triangle, which is really useful for long distance enemies, and a dodge, which is crucial for every fight. You can jump to, which you'll be using to take on airborne enemies. As you keep fighting, you'll fill up a meter under your health bar, which you can either use to heal yourself by pressing down on the D-pad, or to execute a special takedown on your foes. Lastly, you can zoom in and aim with L2, and use webs and gadgets with R1, which is a thing that works. Overall, the combat is simplistic but immensely satisfying. It feels like they took a bunch of ideas from the previous Spider-Man games and mixed it with some of their own bits and flair. Just for some examples, you got the Spider-Man 2 dodge, wall attacks from Ultimate, and even the web strike, which is fine but isn't as good as Web of Shadows or even Shattered Dimensions for that matter.
Hell, even the swing kick is lifted right out of friend or foe. See?
Also, I know some people will bring this up and say it's just another Arkham clone, which I can see where they're coming from, but I feel like there's enough here to make it distinct, with it relying more on gadgets and agility rather than brute force. Next up is stealth, which mostly consists of webbing dudes up on perch points. I mean, there's more to it than that, and I would say the core mechanics are okay, but most of these sections can be really easy, or you can just fight everybody and disregard it entirely. Another thing I miss is being able to take out people on the walls and the ceiling, so variety is a little lacking in that sense. Like I said, it's alright, but it could be better. Let's look at the gadgets, which there are a good number of them with varying levels of usefulness. Let's start with the normal web shots that actually works compared to the previous games that didn't really know what to do with them. After making the advanced suit, you unlock impact webs, which is probably my favorite tool to abuse, especially in stealth sections. There's spider drones, which I don't find myself using much, electric webs, which I find completely useless, web bombs, which are really good in large crowds, trip mines, which I never use outside of stealth, concussive blasts, which are meh, and lastly the suspension matrix, which I never use by itself. That leads into one of my favorite things to do, which is combining gadgets together, like using concussive blasts after a web bomb, and throwing trip mines with guys suspended in the air. Overall, the gadgets can be really hit or miss, but I like the inclusion of most of them. Now on to the traversal, which is really entertaining and also somewhat relaxing as well. R2 is the swing button as usual, but you can also use it as a sprint when you're on the ground. Tapping X has you do a web zip to keep you airborne, and hitting both triggers allows you to zip to certain points when an icon pops up, which you can jump off at the right time. I've spent so many hours swinging around Manhattan in this game, but compared to the other titles, it just barely beats Ultimate for me personally.
Well, I guess we can move on to the other step. Oh, fuck.
Besides swinging around, you can also play as your alter ego and do things like walking around, clean up messes, or do puzzles which just feel completely unnecessary. I don't mind some variety, and I like the idea of playing as the hero without the mask, but I feel with Peter there's just not much here, and the puzzles are just not fun at all. Oh, but he's not the only playable character, since you can play as Miles Morales before the spider bite and Mary Jane Watson. So these two primarily focus on stealth, and in the case of Miles, I don't think his missions are too bad. They aren't very long, and they can be creative with their set pieces. MJ, however, what the fuck happened here? If it's not the length that'll bore you out, it's the enemy AI that'll catch you out of nowhere, or the patterns that feel random each time you play these levels. Just about every section has their fair share of bullshit, whether it's Tombstone's Hideout, which I can never get a beat on, or something like Grand Central Station, which never seems to fucking end. Eventually you do get some items that attempt to help you out, but I feel they barely do anything. First is a lure that Peter gives you, which distracts goons for just a second, and a taser which you get the last time you play as her. Miles gets a hacking amp which will distract enemies, but like the lore, it doesn't really last long either. In short, I never look forward to these sections, and I kinda hope for future games they're either reworked to be more fun, or just left out completely.
Alright, now we can go over the other stuff.
Let's begin with the graphics, because goddamn, this game looks amazing. From environments to character models, everything looks top-notch, and I would say it's one of the best looking games from the PS4 library. The soundtrack is also great stuff too. Daredevil and Invincible composer John Pisano delivers a score that feels grand, heroic, and ultimately triumphant and heartwarming. If there's one piece I have a major issue with, it's the web swinging theme, but that's only because I've listened to it so many times to the point of it being kind of annoying.
Am I the only one that thinks of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show whenever I hear John Pisano's last name?
Do the Mario!
Please, stop.
Now onto the open world, which is probably one of my favorites in any superhero game. It's so rich and lively, and even though it may be intimidating with its size, they make use of it with the various collectibles and side missions, which I'll get into soon. Plus, I really appreciate the sizable amount of famous Marvel landmarks from Avengers Tower to Alias Investigations.
You know what, after saying that, I kind of want to watch some Marvel Netflix shows again. Okay, never mind.
With superhero games comes side quests, and this game has a fair amount of them. From stuff like raiding bases and doing Taskmaster challenges, you can take pictures of landmarks, find backpacks with relics that help world build, complete research stations for Harry, and chase down and capture pigeons. Besides that, you can also complete missions that involve me helping locals and taking down people like Tombstone and Screwball.
You know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take this gun, and I'm gonna kill her for good.
Aside from you know who, these missions range from being fine at its lowest to actually really entertaining, with my favorite being the fake Spider-Man. Some others like the backpacks and research stations I like too. The Black Cat stakeouts, landmarks and hideouts are just kind of whatever, and I still don't know why they thought chasing pigeons was worth putting in the game. Although admittedly I have fun with it. You can also stop crimes, which is your usual fare of car chases, drug busts, and such. Kinda wish there was a bit more variety with stuff like ambushes and...
Get out.
Here's my issue with the crimes. They count towards your percentage. Normally this doesn't bother me, but it becomes excruciating when there's 4 factions that have 5 crimes apiece in every single district. Christ, this is so frustrating and is easily the worst part of the game for me. It becomes especially bad when you leave all the crimes after you beat the game, so I recommend you do the crimes right when the factions pop up, assuming you're going for 100%. By doing crimes and stuff, you'll earn tokens which you can use to unlock gadgets, suit mods, plethora of alternate costumes, which is actually a great incentive for doing the side missions. I love just about every outfit, with my favorites being the Raimi suit, Last Stand, All New All Different, and vintage costumes, just to name a few. There are some real letdowns like the Spirit Spider and the Undie suit, which is your 100% reward. Honestly, would have preferred the ESU costume in its place. Certain outfits unlock suit powers which you can use for combat, stealth, and traversal, and the coolest part is you can equip them with any suit you choose. I don't mind most of them, but the real standout ones for me are the Web Blossom and the Spider Burrow ability you get from the Homecoming suit. You can also equip suit mods to help you out, which, like the powers, I don't mind most of them, but I have my favorites like the Perfect Dodge, for example. Bosses are alright, I guess. They aren't bad, but most of it boils down to hitting them at the right time, and it gets repetitive. I wish they were a little more creative, especially with the Sinister Six members. Now onto the photo mode, which is the best photo mode I've used in a game. So many amazing options to take advantage of, and even though I suck at photo mode, here are some I took for this video. There are benchmarks which I don't give a shit about, and there's DLC in the form of the City That Never Sleeps, which is fine overall. More on that another day. Hey, it's Future Marvel. I had a transition for the remaster, but I wasn't able to use it because some things changed, so... And also I didn't feel like busting out the whole camera setup, so... yeah, we're just going to do it like this. So yeah, here is the remaster for PlayStation 5. Alright, I'm not going to spend too much time here since I don't own it, but it would have felt wrong to me not to at least give it a mention. So everything I say is mainly based on what I've seen so far. First, like, gorgeous visuals. Lighting still throws me off a bit, but the models just look so crisp and beautiful. All the options with fidelity and performance are amazing, and the added suits are a nice bonus.
You know what? I changed my mind. Let's talk about the city that... Oh, I have to talk about this.
So, when it was first shown off, I wasn't a huge fan of the change. Even on my podcast, I expressed my distaste for it, but over time I've warmed up to it, especially after playing Miles Morales.
I know everybody's not going to be on board with this change, and I can totally accept that. But if you're going to go out of your way to harass the developers just because you can't handle the fact that Peter looks different, sad to say that maybe the internet isn't really the best place for you.
This is definitely worth revisiting at a later date, since there's only so much that can be said from just looking at it. But from what I've seen, it looks like a great remaster, and if you're interested in getting it for your PlayStation 5, it's included with the Ultimate Edition of Miles Morales. I know some people are going to ask me, but yes, I am aware of the PC version of Marvel Spider-Man. I don't own it since I'm broke at the moment, and I just didn't bother. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to my pal Swfte for supplying me with the remastered footage, not only for story segments, but also for free roam as well.
Now, on to my final thoughts.
This game is amazing. The story is spectacular, the combat is sensational, the world surrounding you is superior, and it all comes together to bring us the definitive Spider-Man experience. I thought no Spidey game would beat Ultimate as my favorite, but god damn it, this game managed to do it and then some. I love so much of it, but there are issues for sure, like the repetition of side activities, and did I mention that they managed to fuck up wall crawling somehow? Although that it's still an astonishing action-adventure game that does the friendly neighborhood web-slinger justice. I can't recommend this enough for anybody looking for a great superhero game, but I would also suggest it to people who just want a great game in general. Whether you have a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 5, play this so you too can be a webhead.
Wow, that was a wild ride. But we're not just done yet, because next time we're talking about the Avengers game. Kind of worried how things are going to go down, but hopefully things work out for the better. But until then, I hope you all have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.